From your beloved goldfish to slightly larger creatures and more, here are some pets that shouldn't be returned to the wild. Number 9. Goldfish. It may seem odd to some that a goldfish shouldn't be returned to the wild. After all, what could be so bad and harmful about a goldfish, right? They're very simple creatures, which is why they're great pets. They don't attack people or other animals, so why is it bad that they can go from the confines of an aquarium to the openness of a lake? If you release one goldfish, then likely not much. But if you release an aquarium's worth of them, yeah, that's a problem. Allow me to tell you a story of what happened in Boulder, Colorado. A couple decided to release their goldfish into a nearby lake. There were only a handful of them, but that was enough. Soon after their release, they began to multiply, and eventually the lake was filled with goldfish. And while that might seem adorable, that's actually kind of bad. How so? Certain species of fish don't have a lot of natural predators. Goldfish are one of such creatures, as they're descendants of a carp from Japan. Since no other fish are attacking them or eating their eggs, they're free to populate and grow at will, which has happened more than once in places all over the United States. What's more, because this isn't natural, the government was called in to remedy all of this, and removing thousands upon thousands of goldfish from a lake takes time and money. Finally, goldfish are capable of carrying diseases, and so putting them into a lake can cause a lot more harm than you think. So what's the solution? Go to your pet store and see if they would like them, so they can be given to another home, or put up an ad online for them. Just because you don't want them doesn't mean others won't. It'll help the goldfish and the environment in the long run. Number 8. Non-native birds. The story I'm about to tell you is 100% true, and a big reason why you need to be careful when you bring a non-native animal into your home. In 1890, a fan of William Shakespeare named Eugene Shefflin had a dream. He wanted to bring some of the birds that were mentioned in Shakespeare's works to his home. The problem here is that the birds, in this case, a starling, was native to Europe, Asia, and Africa, but Eugene lived in New York. Not thinking of what might happen, he bought 100 starlings and released them in New York. The starlings began to multiply. By the time 1920 rolled around, there were starlings from New York to the Mississippi River, and by 1940, they made their way to California. At that point in time, their flocks were so huge that they could even total about 1 million per flock. At first, you might think this is harmless, but tell that to those who suffered because of the starlings. These birds cause a lot of damage, which cost a lot of money to fix. They've even crashed planes by colliding with them. And if that wasn't bad enough, there's so many nowadays that they can cause many other birds to become endangered. And remember, this only started with 100 starlings in New York. Number 7. Ferrets. When it comes to ferrets, it's easy to think, oh, well, ferrets are actually wild animals, and so it's fine if I put them back into the wild. The problem, though, is that the reverse is true. While there are wild ferret species, there's not as many as you might think. Many species of ferret have been domesticated for millennia, and 9 times out of 10, if you go to a pet store and get a ferret, you're getting a domesticated one and not a wild one. If you get the urge to set it loose, you're actually dooming it to a short life. After all, you've been taking care of a ferret for some time now, and it's going to be expecting food from someone other than itself. As such, if you release your pet ferret, it'll be gone within a few days because of starvation. Or worse, because it's not expecting any danger from other predators and it won't be aware of its surroundings. The responsible thing to do is contact an animal shelter and see if they have room to take care of your ferret while they try to find it a new home. Number 6. Whales. This is actually a hot debate when it comes to SeaWorld, as they are known for one of the few places in the world where you can see a trained whale. They are amazing to view from your seat, but there's a question going around whether these pet whales should be returned to their homes. Here's the issue. The whales, specifically killer whales, are actually trained to live in their pens, which are pretty expensive to ensure that the whale survives in it. To expose it to the open waters of the oceans can be dangerous. Not to mention that the solo whale might not be able to survive on its own for various reasons. The legendary whale, Kiko, who was the star of Free Willy, was actually returned to the ocean not long after the film was made, and she died of pneumonia a few months later. This has naturally raised up arms to say that whales shouldn't be captured for parks like SeaWorld. For once they're caught, they can't be released or else they'll die pretty quickly. But what's the truth? That is still technically unknown. Number 5. Rats or mice. There are plenty of wild rats and mice in the world. No way to deny that. However, the mice you get at pet stores and other institutions are bred to be pets, or in certain causes, test subjects. Wild rats or mice won't do for either, so the ones that are captured in the wild are domesticated and bred to be pets. So if you have a pet mouse and you release it into the wild, it's going to die, and soon. Think about it. Mice are small, and when they're part of your life, they're guided to where they need to eat and drink and exercise and etc. But when you release them, all those guides are gone. Plus, many domesticated mice species are white in their fur coloring, which isn't very native to most wildlife ecosystems. Why does that matter? Because they'll stand out and likely be caught by predators very quickly if they don't die from starvation. As if that wasn't enough, some species of mice that are bred for home life have certain deficiencies that will cause them to fall even faster. Albino mice, for example, actually have really bad eyesight, which is not something you would want when entering a wild world. So like many other animals, should you want to release your pet mice from your care, find another owner, or release them to a pet store. Number 4. Rabbits. We should all know the dangers of the rabbit population, right? Or at least you think you do. Well, you might think that if you release your pet rabbit or two, that they'll go hopping into the fields and start a massive 100 rabbit family, right? But that's not the case. Like most domesticated animals, pet rabbits being released into the world at large is actually a death sentence. First, because of how they're raised and trained, they don't know how to get their own food. Yes, rabbits eat seeds, but because of how it's raised at your house, that's not all it eats, right? So if you take that away, what's it supposed to do? Continuing on with that notion, if it doesn't know what to do, it'll be easy prey for predators. Wild dogs, foxes, cats, hawks, raccoons, birds, and more feast on rabbits. They'll just stay out in open areas waiting for guidance on what to do, and they'll be snatched up by one or multiple things and never be seen again. Ironically enough, the act of abandoning a rabbit or releasing it out into the world on its own is in fact illegal. Number 3. Argentine Tegu. In Florida, there's now a new animal outbreak going on, and the source of it is the Argentine Tegu. This is a very unique lizard that was very much not native to Florida and the US. But because of an exotic pet dealer, they were released into the Sunshine State, and as such, they began to breed, and things went south from there. You see, the tegus can lay about 34 eggs per year. When you multiply that across a bunch of tegus, their population can get pretty massive. Florida is already a home to many species that honestly shouldn't be there in the first place. The worst part, though, is that the tegu is a recent addition to the population, so it's actually not clear how it will affect the animal natives of Florida, but it's only a matter of time before we find out. Number 2. Turtles. Turtles. They're kind of an odd pet, but they can make you happy, and they're actually really easy to take care of. But when you're done raising it, should you dump it in the wild? The answer is no, and not just because of the fact that it'll die soon from never having to get its own food before. No, it actually has a greater danger that it can pose to other species of turtle. You see, turtles can actually carry diseases. It won't harm humans, per se, but if released into the wild, it can spread the disease and infect other species of turtle, causing them to die in a big way. You wouldn't expect that from such a creature, but it's true, which is why you should take care of it if you're going to give your pet turtle a new life. Number 1. Snakes. Snakes are curious pets and definitely not for ones who want a loving pet. But one of the biggest misconceptions about pet snakes is that when you're done with them, you can release them out into the world with no harm done. The opposite is what happens, and many areas are suffering for non-native snakes coming and breeding in these new areas. In Florida, not only have pythons and boa constrictors exploded in their population numbers because of exotic animal releases, but the state has actually allowed the hunting of the snakes because of how big their population numbers are. More than that, though, because of the arrival of these snakes, several animal species have suffered greatly. Foxes and rabbits are basically non-existent in certain parts of the state because of the snakes, and in the Everglades, raccoons, possums, and bobcats have had their numbers drop by about 99%. Snakes are many things, but invasive is one of the worst, which is why you should never release them into the wild. Thanks for watching. What do you think about people that release these kind of pets into the wild? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!